So for those of you that have been following my channel, or for those of you that are new, we had this challenge that we issued on Facebook about what tools should I be allowed to use when I start a Colt. Now, let me rewind just a little bit. I wanted to do this challenge of picking a single tool to start a Colt because I wanted to prove my idea that connection first is the better approach to horse training. And what I mean by connection first, so I kind of sum up everything that we do with horses as connection and position. Connection is the horse mentally connecting to our idea? If your idea is to have the horse stand still to be saddled, you want them to stand still in a loose rein. Position would be their feet are standing still, but they're in cross ties and they're resisting it, and we're holding on the lead rope really short, trying to make a horse stand still. So they might be standing still in the position, but if we let go, they would move. That would mean we have position, but we don't have connection. Another example, if you have a horse in that loaded up into a horse trailer, but if the butt bar wasn't up, they would run out backwards, right? Like they don't want to be in there, but physically they are in, but mentally they are not. And so I believe in building connection before position. I think they're equally important, but we need connection first. So I'm out to prove that with this challenge. So I issued this challenge to Facebook, and I said, can I use a stick and a string to start a Colt? Which I actually thought would have been the hardest one. I said, would you give me just a halter and lead rope, which is kind of a classic Colt starting tool, or could I use just a Lariat rope? Now, most of the people ended up voting for the Lariat rope, so that's what we're going to go with today. All I get is my saddle and pad, and a Lariat rope. Normally, when I go into a round pen to start a Colt, I would have these tools, which to me is it's pretty simple, but so let's just go through them quick. I'd use a stick and a flag. This is good for kind of getting a horse used to some energy and some bigger movements, and kind of just moving them around and just seeing kind of overall how they handle a little bit of pressure and a little bit of intensity, seeing what their response is. I would also use a Lariat rope and see how well they follow feel with that. I would probably use a stick and a string for specific yields, like can I move just your hindquarters? Can I move your head and neck? Can I side pass you? You know, if I need to touch them on the hindquarters to get them into a canter, things like that. I would probably use a feed sack like this to kind of maybe roll it up and desensitize them to this a little bit, build their confidence with this before I go to the saddle pad. Okay, so that would be a step. It's just kind of light, but it's noisy and crinkly, and kind of gets horses bothered, so that'd be something I would use. I might put the horse on a longer rope. This is a 22-foot lead rope. This works good for getting them cantering around but still having a connection. Works good for that. Depending on the horse and what my situation is, I may or may not use a snaffle bit when I'm starting them. That can be a good tool for help building the flexion and systems. I typically don't ride Colts in a snaffle bit for the first 5 to 10 rides or so, but every now and again there's one that I think I want to be able to bend them to the side a little bit more than what I would have from a rope halter. So, but today we're going to push all this to the side, and I'm going to go into the round pen with my Colt with just a Lariat rope. And we're going to see if my idea of building a connection will also help the horse see me as the leader and start to trust me and accept me overall as the rider. Let's see how it goes. All right, so this is Onyx. This is the Colt we're going to be starting. He's a horse that I bought this winter, back in February. His owner was having a little bit of trouble handling him on the ground. He was a little bit dominant, a little bit pushy, just kind of fresh and frisky, that sort of thing. He seems to be a pretty confident Colt. I've only handled him a couple of times. Other than that, he's been sitting out in the pasture and kind of just growing up a little bit and waiting to get started. So we are ready. The time has come. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the halter off here at first. And I just want to see him move around. I really like to see how a horse does at liberty. And then, of course, we got to get rid of this halter because we're not going to be using this anymore, other than just to lead him from the round pen to his pasture. But won't be using that in the training process here. Now, you guys picked the Lariat rope for me, which I was actually pretty grateful for because this is a really versatile tool that I use all the time for doing lots of different things. We'll go ahead and get him going here. Now it is pretty warm out today. It's probably close to 90 degrees already, so he's going to be a little bit lazy, not wanting to move too much with how hot it is. He's also probably a bit out of shape. There we go. So you can see, and one of the principles that I follow with my horsemanship is work with the horse where they're at. So it's funny, I was expecting him to kind of run in here and jump and buck and kick and move all around because he hasn't been handled all that much. But you can see we actually need to work on his responsiveness. So I'm going to ask him to go. When you're starting a colt, one of the main things that you want to feel is a go button. One of the worst feelings you can feel when you get on a colt is that they don't want to move. You want them wanting to go forward. Now, he's also not really looking for me here. I'm just kind of waiting. He's got his inside ear on me. There he came off the fence. I kind of like that. So I might step in front of him here and see if he wants to turn in. I'll take pressure off of him when he faces in versus when he faces out. And I'm just kind of overall looking for what are partnership positions versus what are prey animal responses. So I'm going to bring my life up here, ask him to move off. Now, we're going to start a colt with just this rope here, but what we didn't really set is a timeline. How much time do I have to do this in? And so I'm going to let him determine the timeline. For me, that's one of the most important things when you're starting a colt is to read, do I have a green light? Do I have a yellow light? Do I have a red light? A red light would mean they're very scared. They don't feel safe. Yellow light would mean they're a little concerned about whatever we just did. There we go. That was a much better response, so I'll ease up on him there. Take the pressure off. I'll come to the middle. And I'm actually pretty happy with that, so I'm not going to move him around too much more at liberty here. We'll see if we can get him to hook on a little bit more. That was good. That's a boy. Good. So when I'm starting a colt, there's a few things I'm thinking about. One of those things is, does he accept pressure? So pressure is two main types of pressure. One is steady pressure, which is what I'm going to be using this rope for a whole bunch. So that's going to be easy and obvious for this. The other one that will not be as prevalent is rhythmic pressure, where I bring my life up and put some energy without actually touching him, like what we just did. And so those are the two things that we kind of got to get him used to. So he needs to be able to handle a little bit of this pressure and move and respond without reacting. Okay, so that's for the rhythmic pressure. That's like the rider bringing their life up and trying to get them to move forward, using their legs a little bit. Steady pressure would be like controlling their nose. Very good. So, I'm going to go ahead and move him off here. Another thing that he's going to have to accept is accepting the human. And you can see right now he's really comfortable with the human. So that's going to make that part really easy. He's going to have to accept a saddle, which means the feeling of the saddle, the stirrups, the cinches, all that good stuff. So some of you that have been watching my YouTube channel for a while, you know that I do a lot of things with the Lariat rope. Now I want him to go there, but I don't want to get any closer to him. But I want to teach him to follow a feel off that rope there. So go ahead and put a feel there. See if he can give to it. Super. Very good. And so you can see him shaking his head. So you can see a little bit of attitude where there's some resistance there more so than fear. A lot of people have a hard time accepting that a horse can be resistful. You know, a lot of people want to think they're only afraid, and a lot of times it is they're afraid. I mean, most of the time they're afraid. In this particular case, I'm reading his behavior as mostly no, I don't want to, versus I'm afraid. So I'm just letting him get used to this rope all over his body here. And one of the things I'm thinking about is how well is he given to pressure? Is his mindset improving where he's getting more willing to give and understand my idea as we go? And that's kind of that mental connection part of it. It's like there's just doing the thing, and then there's doing the thing with some yes responses. You know, there's qualities of response. So let's say a parent asks a kid to take the garbage out. There's, oh, I forgot, I didn't do it. There's, fine, I'll go take the garbage out. There's, no, I'm not going to do it. And then there's, yes, I'll do it. But there's actually one even better than that, which is it was already done and they took responsibility for it. And that's what I'm ultimately going to be going for here, is how can I give him a little bit more responsibility? Now let me show you kind of a cool thing that you can do with a lariat rope here. You can actually make this loop a little bit bigger, put a half hitch back through, and then you can actually make a little bit of a halter with this. Okay, so I'm going to show you that just for a second. I'm not going to use that very much in this Colt starting demonstration, because I think part of my point for giving you guys some tools to choose was to give you guys some options of things. And I was kind of thinking you guys would pick a stick and a string for me, so it would kind of guarantee that we're going to start this Colt bridleless, or at least with just a neck string. There, that was a good yield. But I'll just kind of show you this, and then that'll maybe be the end of that here. So again, just checking out those hindquarters. Now we got to check out the forequarters. I like to think of all these yields as like a point system. If let's say, if I'm asking him to turn loose to me 100%, you know, overall in his overall development over the next few years, I think of it as a point system. So let's say if I can yield his hindquarters, I get 5 points. But I only get 5 points if he gives me a really good quality yield. If I can just look at those hindquarters with hardly any pressure on the rope, like that was a pretty nice one right there. So I like that, so I'll leave him alone right there. But if I gotta pull on the rope and I gotta drive with this hand and I gotta do a lot to get it done, and he finally does it, maybe that's only worth 1 point, okay? So the more different yields I ask him to do, I get more points, right? So let's say this is a 5-point move, to be able to drive that shoulder around. Another 5-point move, very good. Say I can back him up here. Very good. So if you can get those yields really soft, the more you do, it kind of can add up to 100 points. That's why you want to have a variety of the things you do. You don't want to just do one thing, one yield, and expect to get everything out of that one thing. So again, this lariat rope is a super versatile tool. It requires a lot of rope handling skills, but you can see I can really expose him and get him used to ropes being all over his body here. I can move this around him, you know, and you can see he's okay with that. That's going really well. So now watch, I'm going to put a feel here. Wait for him to work his way through that. Wait for it. There we go. Good boy. So it came through that yield nice. Now, how long I stay at a particular yield, like say, most of the time if you see somebody round penning a colt where they're trotting and cantering around, you'd see them do it for quite a while. But I can tell with this horse that it's not about how long he does something for. That would only be true of needing to leave him out there for a while, as if he was scared. When the horse is afraid of something, then you got to use repetition to get him to be more comfortable in that position before you release it. But with a horse that's pretty left-brained like he is, left-braining meaning he's really using his thinking side of his brain as we go here. You know, the part of their brain that they would choose to, you know, figure out who's dominant in the pasture, the part that they would use to go say, I'm kind of hungry, I'm going to go look for some food. Or I'm kind of thirsty, I'm going to go look for water. That's that left brain side. The right brain side is the side that is concerned, it's alert, they're looking for something that's dangerous. And that's the side of their brain that causes big reactions when a horse really gets afraid of something and really either would cut loose bucking or just really be bothered, okay? Now, this is all feeling pretty good, so I'm going to see now if we can go to the next step here. I'm going to get rid of these. See if we can go to the next step here of accepting me crawling around on him. So I'm gonna use a technique called the Jeffries method. Now, this is what's hard about the lariat rope, is it's kind of big to have around, but he wanted to walk off there when he felt that pressure. So I'm gonna let him go explore that. So I'm gonna put a little pressure on him and go, oh, you wanna move your feet? Let me help you move your feet. So he needs to learn to follow my intention. So right there, my intention was to move. Now I'm going to bring my energy down. My intention is to have him stand still. Okay? And again, with a halter, you can put a little feel there and cover that up pretty easy. But so even though I'm crawling around on him, this is just noise that he's just got to be okay with. This isn't pressure. This is rhythmic motion, not rhythmic pressure. Okay? So he needs to get comfortable with this. And this is called the Jeffries method, where you create a pattern of jump up and down, and then you step off to the side, move their hip a little bit. You know, the more they want to move away from you when you're crawling up and down on them, the more I'm going to move their hindquarters. And he can really feel that contrast. So I'm creating a pattern, but I'm also releasing him to this position. Okay, so now we'll come around here to this side. Good. Yeah, there's definitely some big old flies crawling around on him. I guess including me. Just wear the human. There we go. So that's great if he can have a big release. I'm just rubbing him on the other side here. Good deal. So now another thing that we got to prepare him for is the saddle. And one of the things I like to do as a prep step, so to speak. Same with the bareback mounting. So I call that the Jeffries method, but I didn't really explain why we would do that. One of the reasons we would do that is because you can't sneak a ride on a horse getting on bareback. They got to be okay with it, and they got to trust you there. If you put a saddle on them and you teach them to come up to a mounting block, you can ease up there pretty smooth and then have that horse go, whoa, how'd you get there, right? But if you start off on the ground like this with no saddle on, you can kind of jump around on them and kind of test that. There, that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and put some fly spray on them. Thank you. Thank you, Gracie. See if you can be a little less distracted. So you can see how confident he is. You know, I don't know how many times he's been fly sprayed, but he acts like we do it all the time. And he should have a really good disposition. He's a really well-bred colt, and hopefully he's going to be my next superstar here. Very cool. So now what I'm going to do is test that cinch a little bit. So one of the things I like to do before I saddle him is use the Lariat rope to make a nice big loop here. I can get it out of his mouth. Now, one of the steps I was just thinking to myself that's kind of weird is normally I would teach a lot of lateral flexion with the halter. So that's not going to be something I can do. So I'm just going to pull on this a little bit. You really want him to find forward. The answer is forward, not slowing down. Go ahead and release it there. Oh. So of course that got him a little bothered, so I just stay with it. I don't want him to stop. I want him to move, and then I'll release it. Very good. Get a hold of it again. Really good, I like that. Now I also really like that I brought my life down, he came right down with me. Again, it's pretty hot out today, so he's not too inclined to really want to move a whole heck of a lot. If he was a little bit more worried, I'll just show you real quick. Another place I would put this Lariat rope on him is right here above the hock. And this can make a horse feel pretty claustrophobic when you got him roped here. And at first I'll just put it on him and let him wear it. And of course normally I'd have a rope halter on him at the same time. But today we're going to do this at liberty. I'm using these voice commands a lot. You guys are probably getting sick of hearing it. But I'm using them a lot because when I get on him, I don't want to put a bunch of pressure on him if I'm sitting there. I want him to understand means go and kiss means canter. But you can just see, this is why I like this Colt so much, you can see how quickly he thinks through pressure. That's just fantastic. That's the name of the game. Excellent, excellent, good boy. And so the interesting thing is I could teach him to stop off the halter, and of course that would be easier than teaching him to stop off of a hind leg. But it's the same box in his brain. If he can learn to give to steady pressure, he's going to be learning that yield anywhere. Super. Now, I say I do that a lot with right-brained horses because that's a kind of a tough one for them. But if they can understand that and work through that pressure, you really kind of got something there. So he handled that really well. So now I'm thinking, let's go ahead and put a pad on him, and let's get this guy saddled up here, see what we got. Hey, this has been a lot of fun. We finished up in a good spot. If you guys want to see the rest of the training session we just had with Onyx, there's going to be a link in the description below. Make sure you guys check it out. It's on our Patreon page. You won't be disappointed. A lot of more great videos coming at you on there. We'll see you on the next one.